The drive to my brother's engagement party took 47 minutes, and I spent every single one of them talking myself out of turning around. I had the exit ramp memorized. I'd driven the stretch of I-95 enough times to know exactly where I could peel off and head back to my apartment in DC without anyone being the wiser. I could text some excuse, work emergency, flight delay, anything. And my mother would believe it because she always assumed my job was the kind that swallowed weekends whole. She just didn't know how completely it did. But I kept driving, past the exit, past the strip of outlet malls I remembered from childhood, past the water tower with the town name in faded blue letters. I kept driving because my brother had asked me to come, and despite everything, he was still my brother. The party was at my aunt's house in Westport, one of those sprawling colonials with a wraparound porch and a barn-style garage that had been converted into an entertainment space sometime in the 90s. My aunt had money in the way that certain Connecticut families have money, quietly, thoroughly, and with an unspoken assumption that everyone else was keeping score. I pulled into the gravel driveway at 7:15. The lights were already blazing from every window. I could hear the low throb of a Bluetooth speaker playing something that was trying to be jazz. I sat in my car for a moment. My name is Cecily. I'm 31 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I have been the family's footnote, the one who went to a state school while my brother got Georgetown, the one who took a government job while my cousins went into finance and law, the one who, according to my mother, had so much potential. If only she'd applied herself. I applied myself. I just couldn't tell them where. I got out of the car. My aunt spotted me first, which was either lucky or unlucky, depending on your perspective. She crossed the patio with her wine glass held high like a torch and kissed the air beside both my cheeks. "Cecily, you made it. We weren't sure you'd come." She said it with warmth, but the message underneath was familiar. "We expected less of you, and you almost confirmed it." "Wouldn't miss it," I said. Inside, the barn smelled like catered food and expensive candles. Round tables were scattered across the space with floral centerpieces my aunt had probably spent 3 weeks choosing. My brother was holding court near the bar, tall, easy-smiled, already a little flushed from his second drink. His fiancée, a woman named Ingrid I'd met exactly once before, stood at his side in a silk blouse the color of champagne. He saw me and waved me over, and for a moment I felt the particular warmth that comes from being genuinely welcomed somewhere, rather than merely tolerated. "You're here," he said, hugging me. "I'm here. Mom's been asking about you." "Of course she has." He laughed because he knew exactly what that meant. I circulated. I shook hands and accepted glasses of Pinot Grigio and answered the standard questions. Yes, still in DC. Yes, still with the federal government. No, nothing exciting. Mostly policy work. People's eyes glazed over at the words policy work in the way they'd been glazing over for years, and I let them. Glazed eyes were something I had learned to depend on. My mother found me near the appetizer table around 8 o'clock. She was wearing the pearl earrings she saved for occasions she considered important, which told me she'd decided tonight mattered. "You look thin," she said by way of greeting. "Hi, Mom. Are you eating? You work too much, you don't eat enough, and you never call." She picked up a shrimp and examined it with mild suspicion. "Your cousin Daphne just made partner at her firm. Did I tell you that? You mentioned it. She's 29. Good for Daphne." My mother looked at me sideways, the way she did when she was deciding whether to say the thing she was already planning to say. "I just worry, Cecily. You've been at that agency for 6 years now, and you're still just what do they call it, a program coordinator? Analyst?" I said. "Right, an analyst." She turned the word over like it was something she'd found under a rock. "It's fine work. I know it's fine work. I just thought you'd be further along by now. That's all." She patted my arm and drifted toward a cousin. I stood there for a moment, alone among the shrimp and the crostini, and did what I'd learned to do. I breathed, and I let it pass through me, and I reminded myself that she didn't know, she couldn't know, and that was by design. The man who changed everything arrived at 8:40. I didn't notice him immediately because I'd retreated to a quieter corner with my second glass of wine and my phone, pretending to check messages. I heard my aunt's voice go up half an octave, the register she reserved for genuinely impressive guests, and looked up to see her escorting a man and a woman in from the side entrance. He was mid-50s, broad-shouldered, in a dark suit that sat too well to be off the rack. She was younger, maybe late 40s, with the kind of posture that comes from military training and never really leaves you. They moved through the room the way people move when they're used to rooms rearranging themselves around them. I recognized him. Not immediately, it took a few seconds, the way it sometimes does, when you see someone out of their usual context. His name was Congressman Arthur Vane. He represented the 3rd District of Connecticut and sat on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. I'd briefed him in that capacity 14 times. I set my wine glass down very carefully. My aunt was introducing him to my mother, who was doing the thing she did with important guests. Laughing a little too readily, straightening her posture, mentioning her son's Georgetown degree. Ingrid's family, it turned out, knew the congressman socially. They'd been neighbors somewhere in Fairfield County before someone moved. I considered leaving. Not the party, the room. I could slip out to the patio and let the moment pass. The congressman attended a lot of events. He briefed with a lot of people. It was entirely possible he wouldn't recognize me out of context, in civilian clothes, at a Connecticut engagement party. Then he turned and looked directly at me. There was a pause. That same 2-second delay I'd had. And then something shifted in his face. Not surprise exactly. More like recalibration. He excused himself from my aunt and walked toward me. "I thought that was you," he said. "Congressman Vane." I shook his hand. "Congratulations on your re-election." "Thank you." He glanced around at the party. "I take it you know the family? The groom is my brother." "Is that right?" He said it slowly, like he was rearranging a picture he'd had in his head. "So your mother is—" "She is." He nodded. His companion, his chief of staff, I realized, had drifted close enough to catch the exchange. She gave me a small, precise nod of recognition. I was hoping that would be the end of it, a quiet acknowledgement between people who understood the value of discretion. But my mother had excellent radar for important conversations she wasn't part of, and she materialized at my elbow with her wine glass and her pearl earrings and a smile that was 3 parts curiosity and 1 part performance. "Arthur," she said, because apparently they were already on a first-name basis. "Do you know my daughter? Cecily works for the government, in D.C. She said it the way someone might say she collects stamps, technically accurate but somehow implying limitation. The congressman looked at my mother, then at me, then at my mother again. "I know Cecily," he said. Something in his tone made my mother's smile go slightly uncertain at the edges. The way you smile when you're laughing at a joke you don't quite understand yet. "We've worked together," he added, and there was a precision to the word worked that I recognized from committee rooms. "Oh, how lovely," my mother said, pivoting smoothly. "Cicely is an analyst. A program analyst, I believe. Or coordinator, I always mix it up. At the department of your daughter," the congressman said, with the particular quiet of someone who is very used to rooms listening when they speak. "Chairs the Interagency Threat Assessment Council." The sentence landed differently than I think either of us expected. My mother stopped speaking mid-breath. Across the table, my aunt set down her wine glass. My brother, who had been half listening from 6 feet away, turned fully toward us. Ingrid looked between her fiancé and the congressman with the alert expression of someone trying to determine whether they'd missed something important. "She's been running that office," the congressman continued, and I could see him deciding, in real time, exactly how much to say, for the past 3 years. "Briefing the committee, coordinating across 9 agencies." He paused. "She's the youngest person to hold that position in the council's history." There was a silence. Not the comfortable kind. My mother looked at me. Her mouth opened and then closed. You never said," she started. "It's classified work, Mom. But surely you could have mentioned." "No," I said gently. "I really couldn't." She stood there with her wine and her pearl earrings, and the particular expression of someone whose internal map has just been handed back to them with large portions drawn entirely wrong. Later, after the congressman had moved on and the music had started again, and everyone had drifted back to their conversations with the slightly dazed energy of people pretending they hadn't just witnessed something, my brother found me on the patio. He leaned on the railing beside me. We looked out at my aunt's backyard, the Japanese maple, the string lights, the stone path leading to the garden she never actually used. Chair of the Interagency Threat Assessment Council, he said. Yeah, and you've been doing this for 3 years. Almost 4. He was quiet for a moment. You could have told me. I know. I wouldn't have said anything. I know that too. I looked at the maple. It's not really about trusting you specifically. When you work in this kind of environment, compartmentalization becomes the default setting. You stop even noticing when you're doing it. He nodded slowly. Mom is inside trying to recover. I know. She asked Aunt Diane if she'd ever heard of the Interagency Threat Assessment Council, and Aunt Diane pulled it up on her phone, and now they're very quiet. I laughed, in spite of everything. The kind of laugh that has some relief in it. She's not a bad person, I said. She had a picture of who I was and she held on to it. She told the Hendersons last Christmas that you were a mid-level paper pusher who was too stubborn to go to grad school. I know she did. I didn't correct her. I know that too. I looked at him. I'm not angry. I'm really not. It's just easier to be underestimated. When people don't think much of what you do, they stop asking questions. He absorbed that. So the past 6 years have been exactly what they needed to be. We stood there for a while in the Connecticut dark. A car passed on the street beyond the hedgerow. Inside, the Bluetooth speaker shifted to something slower. Ingrid's going to ask you 100 questions, he said finally. I'll say policy work, he laughed. She won't believe you anymore. She will, I said. People hear what they expect to hear. My mother came to find me before I left. I was getting my coat from the rack near the side door, and I heard her heels on the stone floor before I turned around. She looked. And I say this without any satisfaction, because I'd stopped wanting satisfaction somewhere around year 3. She looked small. Not physically, just diminished somehow. In the way that happens when the story you've been telling yourself turns out to be wrong in fundamental ways. I didn't know, she said. I know you didn't. You should have told me. I considered several responses and discarded them. What I said was, I spent 6 years telling you I was doing important work. The details were classified, but the fact of it wasn't. I told you I was good at my job. I kept my voice even, not cold. You heard what you wanted to hear. She didn't answer right away. The string lights from the party behind her made her look softer than she usually did, or maybe that was just the evening catching up with her. The congressman said you brief Senate and House leadership, she said finally. Sometimes. He said the work your council does. He said it's some of the most important threat assessment that comes across the committee's desk. He's generous. Is it true? I thought about the past 4 years. The late nights. The classified annexes. The decisions made in windowless rooms that would never appear anywhere in any form that anyone outside those rooms would ever read. The weight of it. The purpose of it. Yes, I said. It's true. She nodded. Her earrings caught the light. I don't know what I expected. An apology, maybe, or some recalibration she'd announce out loud. But she just stood there, looking at me with an expression I didn't have a name for. Like she was seeing something she'd been standing in front of this whole time without ever actually looking at. Drive safe, she said finally. It's supposed to rain on I-95. Okay. And call me when you can. I put on my coat and walked to my car. The gravel crunched under my boots. The night air was the particular kind of cold that happens in Connecticut in October. Clean and dark and full of the smell of leaves turning somewhere you can't quite see. I didn't feel triumphant. I want to be clear about that, because it would be easy to tell this as a story about winning, And that's not quite what it was. What I felt, sitting in the driver's seat in the dark before I turned the key, was something closer to relief. The relief of a person who has been carrying something heavy for a long time, not because the weight is suddenly gone, but because someone finally saw how much she'd been holding. I started the car. The headlights came on, sweeping across the gravel and the hedgerow and the mailbox, at the end of the driveway with my aunt's last name stenciled on it in neat black letters. I drove home. I called my best friend from the highway and told her what had happened, and she laughed so hard I had to hold the phone away from my ear. And that laugh, from someone who had been in my corner since we were 22, felt more like a celebration than anything that had happened inside that barn. Some things you earn in rooms no one will ever read about. Some things get witnessed anyway, eventually, by the right person at the wrong party. I merged onto I-95 South and let the lights of Connecticut fall away behind me. And I thought, this is enough. This has always been enough. The work was real. The work had always been real. And now, at least, the woman who raised me knew it too.